Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, through this talk show, we will explore more about how Indonesia aligns its national legal strategy with its active role in multilateral forums in advancing a digital copyright ecosystem that is fair, transparent, and sustainable. We are honored this evening to be joined by a distinguished speaker who will share his perspective on these important issues. May I invite our speaker to the stage, the Honorable Mr. Andry Indrady, Head of the Agency for Legal Policy Strategy, Ministry of Law of the Republic of Indonesia. Bapak Andry, it's very nice having you here on the stage. We've got a very short 15 minutes, but we have a lot to elaborate about the things. So first thing first, I would like you to elaborate the key challenges has identified in managing and regulating copyright royalty in this digital environment. How are the challenges? Because I know it's quite challenging.
Okay, thank you so much. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, first of all, we'd like to thank you for your presence to these occasions. And I think this is very important to share that the good news is the Indonesian delegations led by the Vice Minister of Foreign Affairs, we attended the 47th sessions of the SCCR at the WIPO headquarters in Geneva, and we delivered our proposal before the committee and also the member states. And the good news is most of the groups on the member states, which consist of 7 groups, they all give the positive feedbacks, and they will look forward to work collaboratively with Indonesia. And Indonesia also will engage further on our next SCCR at the 48 sessions in Geneva to talk more about how we make the detail, the draft of the treaty, and also to discuss what are the similarities, what are the differences among the member states in order to build these international regimes. So, Excellencies, distinguished ambassadors, let me begin to give you a simple observations. Now, if we talk about the royalties, we need to know how this comes into an issue concerned by Indonesia and most of the countries around the globe. Well, today the streaming digital technologies being a dominant mode of access for phonograms and audiovisual contents, as we know, right? And based on the reports made by the international phonograms industry, that the global streaming revenues surpassed 20 billion US dollars for the first time in history. Can you imagine that? It is a very big number. And the UNTAC's Creative Economy Outlook shows that the streaming grows by 10.4% in 2023, and now accounting to roughly 67.3% of the global market. And for the first time, digital became the largest source of royalty collections. So among other modes of distribution and collection of royalties, digital platforms now become the main source of the royalty for creators. Now, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, despite this remarkable growth, as I explained to you earlier, creators still face the widening gap between the value generated in the digital markets and the remuneration policy ultimately they receive. So this is kind of like a paradox. We have the big market created by the digital environment at one hand, and the other hand, we have also claimed an unfair remuneration system. Now, let me now one by one observe what are the main concerns of Indonesia at this stage. First, we observe gaps in transparency, inclusiveness, and accountability, particularly in cross-border royalty distribution and collection. Okay? In the United Kingdom, for example, one of the big musicians from the Beatles, they have the issue of royalty share with one of the big companies for the industry, for the recording company, which make the parliamentary hearings conduct a special report to investigate the issue. While also same reports from Latin America and other part of the world, such as Africa, also reported the delayed payments, opaque distribution practices, and limited creator participations in key decisions. Number two, we note the fragmented metadata and the lack of global interoperability continue to hinder accurate cross-border royalty allocations. So, among other main issues, what happened in digital platforms, collection and distribution of royalty is the issue of metadata. If we have a more robust metadata system, that will create a more transparent, a more fair, and a more just collection and distribution of royalty. So what we argue is we must build a robust metadata systems in terms of royalty. And third, we learned that the continued dominance of the pro rata models limits the exploration of more equitable distribution models. So, Excellencies, in the world of royalties, there are some methods for calculation of remuneration for royalties. Most of the digital platforms, they use the pro rata models. That means if you become more popular, the more streams that you have, that means generally you will get more royalties from the songs or for the creation that they make. On the other hand, for the indies musics, traditional musicians, which most of them comes from the developing countries or emerging markets, they get small remuneration simply because the model of payment itself. So what we'd like to do is to propose the new model of payment. Instead of having the pro rata model, there's another model which is called the artist-centric model, which doesn't care about how many streams or what popular the streams, the musics are. We're gonna look at how many people who listen their musics, despite that they are still small and despite they're not being popular yet. So that is the third issue that we raised in this forum. And fourth, Excellencies, we would like to seek the support because it happens globally that some creators, they get lower payment, they got lower valuations to compare with other part of the globes in terms of their royalty within the digital platforms. I'm not gonna say the country, but at least some of the country claim the same thing, that artists from one area or one regions, they got lower valuations of their creations compared to the other regions that they observe. So those four main issues that I've just mentioned earlier become the main driver of this proposal. And yet, we have now seen the developing aspect of artificial intelligence that is even make things even more complicated. And we know that the AI has reshaping creation, distribution, and even media consumptions patterns. The AI has blurring the boundaries between artistic works and the digital media outputs as well. And so now let me briefly outline what are the main three ideas that we propose for the Indonesian proposal, Excellencies. First, Indonesia proposes the establishment of a global governance framework under the auspices of WIPO, or the World Intellectual Property Organizations. Why WIPO? This framework will not interfere with national sovereignty over tariff setting or cultural policy. Instead, its function would be to support documentations of phonograms and audiovisual works, facilitate licensing and cross-border royalty flows, and enhance transparency and oversight in royalty distributions. We understand by having WIPO as the central agency, given its nature as international organizations, it will be neutral, free of interest, because it will reflect the interests of member states. So that's why we would like to propose WIPO as our central agency as an international organizations. And secondly, we encourage the exploration of alternative payment models. As I mentioned earlier, we have the pro rata models and also we have the artist-centric models. Maybe the debate will be on and on about this model, but the idea is how we gonna find the new method of the calculation of remunerations, which is fair for everybody across the globe, no matter what nationalities and what regions they come from. And lastly, we propose the development of accountability mechanisms and minimal global safeguards to enhance fair, timely, and proportional remuneration for creators. And this will lead to the enhancement of the collective management organization, or CMO. What we call in Indonesia is LMK, and also the LMKN. Why LMK has to be enhanced? Why the CMO has to be enhanced? Because they are the machine who will distribute and collect the royalty. They have to be professional. By having their professionals, that means the allocations or the distribution as also the collection of royalty become more fair and transparent. Now, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, what we heard from most of the member states, we have some good news. Now, we see that broad support come from the APG and African group delegation. Thank you so much for the APG and also the African group delegations who gave strong support and also positive response from our proposals, as well as the positive receptions from the GRULAC countries and also the Central Asia and European countries. And also we gained recognitions on the importance of enhancing metadata. They argue similarly in the similar vein with Indonesia that the enhancement of the metadata fragmentation development has to be fixed very soon. Otherwise, we will not have a more fair and transparent royalty management. And lastly, government acknowledged that the WIPO Connect and existing voluntary tools are no longer sufficient to manage AI-driven. Now, the current WIPO systems, they have what they call WIPO Connect, which have the API or connections with the system made by the Confederation of International Collective Management Organizations. But the member states argue that having those existing systems is not sufficient enough. We need bigger, we need more massive, and we need more structured ecosystems which will support the proposals that eventually will create a more fair and transparent royalty. Now, next, we see the reflection from member states on how the proposal contributes. Most of the member states, they agree that there are four main ideas from the SCCR that we gain. First is ensuring the balance and respect for the national context. So again, we do not try to interfere states' sovereignty. In fact, what we want to do is to voice the same concern, to elevate this concern to international fora, which eventually we gain support and we can have more discussion and thorough discussions among different stakeholders, including the industry. And we do not want to alienate industry, in fact. What we want is to have more conversations, a detailed and thorough discussion with them. And also clarifying the WIPO roles in the digital environment. As I mentioned earlier, I think WIPO is suitable to become the central agency in this matter because, again, the nature of WIPO is an international organization. they have the mandate from the member states. So that's why WIPO roles is important. And also building on the complementing existing initiative, at the moment, Excellencies, before Indonesian proposals, the GRULA countries, African groups, they already propose a similar proposal with us. So that's why we see they give support because basically they have similar voice with us. Now, people will say, so what's Indonesian difference proposals from them? So what we are having the difference between us and the GRULAC and also the African groups, they are the mainstreaming on the issue of metadata fragmentation, as I mentioned earlier, because to enable to become more transparent, we have a strong system, and also having WIPO as a central agency. So that's the difference between our proposal and then our friends' proposal. And also, ladies and gentlemen, preserving market and contractual autonomy. We know that most of the country being fear that the Indonesian proposal will disrupt the essence of free contract, FOC, which most of the developed countries already established on that sense. Again, ladies and gentlemen, freedom of contract is not absolute. They have also limitations when it comes to the public interest, when it comes to the unfairness. So what I mean here is that if our country and other member states have the same similar voice to make a more transparent and fair ecosystem in royalty, that means we will support the existing structure on the business on royalty instead of disrupting on it. So that is the purpose of Indonesia. Rather than people will think that Indonesia will disrupt the freedom of contract, in fact, we will enforce a more fair business and a more fair contractual systems among creators, industries, CMOs, and all the parties involved in the ecosystems. So I guess that is all that we want to mention in the Indonesian proposal, Excellencies, distinguished guests. And lastly, we would like to reiterate, music is global and royalties should be too. With that, I thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much. So this brings us to a conclusion of our talk show session this evening. From the discussion we have shared, Bapak, it is evident that Indonesia's initiative to propose a legally binding instrument on the governance of the copyrights royalties in the digital environment reflects not only a policy direction, but also a strong commitment to promoting fairness, transparency, and international cooperation in this digital era. We extend our highest appreciation to you, Bapak, to our distinguished speaker, Honorable Mr. Andry Indrady, for his valuable insights and thoughtful contributions. Please give a round of applause for
pleasure.
Bapak Andry.
Thank you.
Thank you very
so
much.
Thank you so much.
You may return back to your seat, Bapak, and enjoy the night.